Hello Game Design, and welcome to my first video of a brand new project. This project is going to be a top-down action RPG that is essentially a Zelda clone. And it's a 2D project, so we're going to be learning a lot about the Unity's 2D engine, the sprite system, tile map systems, changing scenes, and then kind of the focus of this is setting up interesting and engaging encounters. So unlike previous projects, in this one, we're going to actually be generating a lot of content. So we're going to be building levels. And so even in this first video, we're actually going to go over how to actually start painting a tile map and start actually painting a level for the player to exist in. So with that, let's get started. We want to create a new project that is a template 2D, and I'm just calling mine ActionRPG Advanced Game Design. And then I hit create, and it might take a little while. So as Unity loads up, like I said, the focus for this first video is going to be getting tile sets set up and getting to the point where we can paint levels. And then actually we're going to spend a lot of time, and I'm not going to record me designing levels because it can take a good hour or so just to do one level. And so I'm going to start one, and then in the next video I'll have my level finished. So I'll go over all the main things you need to know about painting the tile maps. So that's going to be our first goal. We're not going to get to any coding. We're just going to try to set up some boundaries. Then in the next video, we're going to start getting the player being able to move, and then actually quite early start setting up some animations for the player. So a lot of these kind of early videos, we're just going to be getting a player that can move and then building some content for the player to move around in. Once that's all worked out, then we're going to go back through and flesh out some enemy system, a basic melee attack, basic ranged attack, and then some puzzle and interactable things. So you can walk up and hit a switch, and that switch could open a door or change some state of the puzzle. And so Unity is still going here. But yeah, so you're going to also want to download any assets that we're going to use. I can say about my animator and console already popping up in here. All right, so here is our blank 2D project. Got not a whole lot of things in it. Main thing to note is main camera defaults to like orthographic and kind of a top-down mode. So you can even see that there's no gizmo for 3D. There still is positions in a three-dimensional space. Negative Z's are closer towards what the camera's looking down upon. So for instance, the game plane is going to be at a Z value of 0, and so if something was a Z value of 1, it would be underneath the game plane. But in general, you don't want to use that for like layering. So, all right, let's start building this tile map. So under assets, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it textures. Inside of there, new folder, and I'm going to call it tile sets. Well, let's call it tile maps. And that's where I'm going to start loading in some of my graphics here. So I'm going to my set of graphics, and I want to bring in some of these grassland ones. So I'm going to bring in this one that's just called grassland, and I'm just going to drag and drop that into Unity. One of the things that I've been having it do is actually eating the first file, the first letter of it, which is kind of irritating. So I drag and drop it into there, and it imports. I do want to grab the other part to that grassland one, which is grassland 2. I'm going to bring that in. And I don't think I necessarily need any of these water ones, but I could bring it in anyway. So if you wanted to do any of these other ones, you could have bring in any of these other colors. but I'm not going to. I'm just going to stick to these basic ones. So once we've got those in, I've realized that I should probably make a separate subfolder because I'm actually going to have several different tile sets. I'm going to have a grasslands. I'm going to have like a cave system, a mine system. So I do need to make subfolders inside of here. And I'm going to call this grassland. And I'm going to move these images into the grasslands subfolder. Still tempted to rename tile maps maybe to tile sets. Let's just do that. All right, so we've got this, and now what we want to do is start actually building a tile painter. But first, we actually do need to slice these graphics up, because when they first import inside of Unity, they come in as a full single sprite. You can actually see over here, sprite mode is single. So it actually thinks this entire thing is a graphic. So we need to actually switch this to being something that we can chop up. So that means we want to change it to multiple. And pixels per unit, these ones are designed to be 128. So we can change this. And the filter mode is going to control if it does any sort of anti-aliasing due to resizing. So let's try point for now, and if that looks too jagged, we'll switch it. So then hit apply, and now you can actually see that it's made, oh, it hasn't actually made them yet. We have to go to Sprite Editor. That's going to open up this window, and we're going to have to tell it to start making sprites. So the easiest thing to do is just to have it automatically slice. So I'm changing the type to grid by cell size, and I'm going to define a pixel size of 128 by 128. All the rest of this looks fine. Maybe could probably delete the keep empty rectangle, so like if it creates a slice that has nothing in it, it's not going to keep it, so we don't want that. So hit slice, and we can see that it's actually created a whole bunch of divided up things. Each one of these are a different tile. Now, it might be, if you were going to spend a lot of time with this, it might be advantageous to rename some of these. But for now, I don't feel like we really want to, because we're not going to really refer to them by name very often. So we've got our tile set sliced, then we hit apply. It's going to take its time. And then we're safe to close this. We may return back to the sprite editor to kind of play around with some of the physics shapes, because right now all the collisions of these are going to be pure rectangular. Additionally, it is kind of awkward to paint trees like this, so I'm also going to, probably in the next video, take a look at doing trees as individual objects rather than tiles. So we can close this. We need to go do that for all the other tile sets as well. So grassland 2, same idea. Pixel sprite mode is multiple. Pixels per unit is 128. We want to switch the filter mode to point, hit apply, go into the sprite editor, slice this. The same settings should be selected, so we can hit slice, and we can see that it's sliced these trees. It is kind of, like I said, tedious to have to paint square by square, but just for the sake of getting this done, we are going to paint it like that. Hit apply. And close this. And the water one, in case we end up needing it, multiple 128. And filter mode is point. Hit apply. Sprite editor. Same thing. I honestly think this is included in the other grassland set, so I don't know if we'll need it, but we're still going to slice it anyway. And I'm going to take out these. Oops. because these aren't going to be tiles used for anything. Notice when I draw it like that, it actually just draws a new sprite, so probably could try to find a faster way to do this. But I have no need for a whole bunch of pink squares. Okay, those are all now taken care of. So we can hit apply, and now this is a tile set. So we need to build this in the tile palette is our next task. So from the window, we want to go open up the 2D tile palette. This allows us to actually start creating a tile set that we can paint with. So let's create a new palette. We're going to call this palette Grassland. And I'm going to leave all this automatic for now. Just hit create. It's going to want to save this. It essentially saves it as a prefab. And I'm going to save it into the Textures, Tile Sets, Grassland subfolder. And you can see that in the assets here, it has created that. So we can start by just dragging in Grassland. And it's going to place them into this tile set. Now, here it's going to save each one of these. So we go into Textures, Tile Sets, Grassland. And I'm going to make another folder called Tiles. This is going to be where it saves all the individual tiles it's about to make. It's going to make a whole bunch of tiles. You can see it going there. Still going. So that's complete. You can actually put more than one of these inside of a tile palette. So I can actually take a Grassland too, and you can see it's targeting it here. So I can, put some space in between it or not. I'm gonna go put these in the same tiles area. It's gonna start saving all those tiles out as it's going. Additionally, you can also rearrange all of the stuff inside of here if once this is done. Still chunking. Okay, so we got all of my trees hanging out over there. And I'm using middle mouse clicking and dragging to pan. If there is some duplication, that's fine. So like if you wanted to rearrange these tiles, if you go to edit, you can actually pick tiles and we can choose the move. I'm gonna select the tile first. Select the tile, go to move tile. And so you can actually kind of rearrange your tile palette a little bit if you think that would actually make development go a little bit quicker. And you will be spending a lot of time playing with the tile map. So there's really no harm in taking a little bit of time to try to make your tile map easier to use. So that way, like all the things that you might need, you can kind of group together. But usually the tile maps are packed kind of intelligently anyway. Like these ones, I could probably delete these. I don't see the need of those. So like I could just pick these tiles and take them out, so because I don't need the duplicates. Okay, so once I'm all happy, make sure you turn off edit, because otherwise you'll accidentally destroy. You could be like start destroying your palette here. So we've got my tile palette, and now we're going to need to go through and actually start making a tile map for us to start painting. So this is the part where creativity comes in a little bit, and also 2 monitors helps a lot. My tile map is going to go to my second monitor. So looking at my game world, I've got all of my tile stuff taken care of, but I need to start being able to make something in this game world. So let's go to Game Object, 2D Object, Tile Map. it's going to create a grid, as you can see, and then it's going to create the first tile map that we have here. We're actually going to want to paint across several different tile maps. I'm going to call this ground. And the way that I'm going to set some of the stuff up later is ground is going to serve as kind of the base palette for like how big the basic map is. So we'll actually want to make ground kind of big, essentially. So let's pick a green. Where is my normal looking green? And I selected my green, which is right about here, and I'm making sure to switch this over to paint with active brush. Now, when you're painting, kind of keep in mind where you're painting. As we add more tile maps, this list of active tile maps will grow. But right now, I want to focus on starting to make some kind of level to play on. So I might make like a kind of a big field like this. And then from there, so this could be my basic thing, and I'm going to add some details on top of it, and I'll add water, but I'm going to add water later. So the next up after ground, I'm going to put a paths game object. So I'm going to go to game, I can just right click this, 2D object, tile map, and it's going to create another one here, and we can call this paths. And so I'm going to start painting some kind of path on it. So I'm going to start using these to create what looks to be some kind of road, but be very mindful that it's currently painting on paths. Well, I kind of have it on like brush mode there. And so I can use the edge pieces to start creating, you know, kind of a side there. If I don't like where this is going, I can select it, I can move it, and that's actually why we're doing this over several layers. So if I wanted to move my path, it's not going to really mess with the grass below it. And there's different versions of these tiles. Now I can start using these corner pieces to actually start making, if I know my corners at all, I don't. I can use the corners to start doing some kind of variations on the path to make it look a little bit more organic. And so you can kind of see how that is creating a more interesting path. We're going to end the path here. You know, I'm going to eventually pick up and put another path over here, but I just wanted to at least look at kind of how to paint a path. Next up, we want to be able to start painting like details. So like some of these like grass, these splotches, or things that are semi-transparent. As you can see here, I've got some semi-transparent things. So we're going to add another layer to the grid called details. Make sure that I'm painting on details, and I can start painting things onto the details layer, and you can see that it's actually serving as transparent. If I were trying to paint on the ground layer, you can see that it overwrites the grass, leaving me with this clear see-through thing. So that's what you actually do usually need, several different layers to kind of create, you know, good sets of ground clutter. And you know, that's where building your own tile maps can kind of come in if you wanted to add a few more things that are interesting. This thing could be a little bit dangerous because if the player is going to appear behind it, I need to be mindful of how I'm going to structure that, so I may not use that from here. I just like throw a few like random rocks and stuff. And so there is my detail layer. And again, I'm going to fill out the rest of this off the video. So now that I've got this painted, I want to take a look at doing a river. And so I'm going to create another layer, tile map, and this thing is going to be called let's call it blocking low. And I'm actually calling it blocking low because I am going to later draw the distinction between things that's like flying things and things that can't fly. So blocking low, I'm going to start putting things that are going to block unit pathing. And so I'm going to put a bridge right here. But for now, I want to start kind of putting in water on the blocking low layer. I'm going to have to change a few things later, which is going to happen probably in the next video when I talk about actually setting up collisions for this. So I'm just painting some water. And then I'm going to come in and fill it in with the details that are going to make it look more like a water's edge. And so we've got the beginnings of something here. And maybe I made that a little too compact, but it really shouldn't affect too much pathing. Okay, so we have my water low layer painted down. So the blocking low, and this is going to, like I said, we're going to talk about using a tile map to, or changing up the colliders so that flying units will ignore this, but like ground walking units will get blocked by it. So next up on top of that, tile map will be bridges. And so I'm going to use this bridge here. You can select multiple to paint like two tiles at a time. So I can actually click things correctly. And so again, we can kind of see that this bridge has some transparency to it, so you can see the stuff that's underneath it as we painted it there. And so the last layer I want to put on here, there's got two more, I guess. Tile map, blocking high. These are things that'll stop flying creatures, and I want to put like a ledge of trees along the side here. So I'm going to use these trees to kind of create some kind of side ledge. Now you'll notice that those aren't completed. because this is going to be kind of a path blocking thing. And the last part of the grid here is, I'll just use it to call it treetops. Things that appear above everything. And so I'm going to use the part of the tree here to get these edges. Okay, and so we've got all of these different layers constructed, and that's probably a decent time to wrap this up. Before I do conclude, though, I do want to talk a little bit about sorting layer, just so that we can at least establish some of these things. So the player is going to be walking at values above 1. So most of these I want to have some kind of negativeness to it. So for instance, all of this needs to appear below the player. So blocking high technically needs to be below the player in terms of rendering. So let's make this -10. You'll see that we've already got some problems of what's appearing here. This is under the tile map render or sorting layer. Bridges, we will make -20. Blocking low will be -30. Details, -40. Paths, -50. And ground, -60. Treetops, due to what I'm going to do in the future, I'm going to make this 30,000. It seems like a random number, but that's actually very close to the maximum value you can have here. So, no, you know what? Let's make it 31,000. And that's to kind of help out later. So, basically, I've started painting a map, and I would recommend actually trying to finishing up your map. You can put a cave on there because we're going to take a look at actually setting up these caves. The second video is going to go through and talk a little bit about how we're going to set up collisions. So right now there's going to be some stuff that we need to change here, but take some time and paint out a scene, or I probably would hold off on making the next few scenes until we learn a few extra things that we have to do here. So paint your entire scene for this one stage, knowing that the player is going to be approximately as big as one of these tiles. So the player should be able to fit 2 wide across this bridge, assuming they're perfectly aligned to it. So thank you for sticking through the first video, and paint some maps.